to spare this country the embarrassment of the mitumba industry. When you go to Gikomba and you see our women, our daughters buying used underwear, you cannot talk of dignity of a country, of a people. So that aside, there's also the question, before I answer your question, the question of talking about employment, yet allowing mitumba to contribute to the death of the textile industry. And then you say you want employment. Of course, there's livelihood from those who do that business, that we understand, but there's need to balance, okay? Depending on donor funding should not alarm us. We should not be alarmed. We should feel ashamed and stupid. Because you know what, Richard? When the United States, or I don't know which country, I think it's the US, withdrew, maybe to change its mind later. 2020, 2021, I think 2020, is funding to WHO. I was shocked. When I looked at the entire funding of WHO, it's something Kenya can do.
Self-reliance.
Kenya can fund WHO without feeling anything. When I calculated the cost of COVID vaccines, I got now the bigger shock. I got the bigger shock. Those inspectors you are talking about, when you see these roads badly done, where are the engineers? The contractor cannot be paid without a certificate of completion and the signatures of several engineers on those documents. Where are they?
The government was there to launch
You
the
see
bridge.
these engineers, they have not gone to school. They have gone to school. They know. People put dollars here and they close their eyes and they just sign, which is a tragedy, because this country will collapse because of its own children. The children like you, society has taken to school, trained to become senior economists like you. When you go to places, you forget that this country, you owe this country, and this country will not move forward unless you stand up for it. So they know. They know what's right.
What level of success has Kenya recorded in combating national disasters and economic shocks they are in? Well, that forms the basis of our conversation today here on Business Glide, a show that we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya's economy in the fullness of time. And as usual, I'm yours truly, Richard Mwenja. And now to dissect into this conversation, I'm joined by renowned statesman, Herman Manyora. Great to see you, sir.
Thank you, Richard.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
All right.
Yes.
Ash Wednesday was good for you?
Yeah, I don't know what does that mean.
Oh, you left Catholic actually. All right, sir. I see. Currently, we have the United Nations Environment Assembly going on. Civil groups are there, business leaders, the government, and so many other parties are involved. We've seen climate change bolster into a Herculean task for us and the business environment in Kenya. Would you say it's high time for Kenya to go beyond the conferences? We have this Blue Economy Conference, we have now the assembly at the UNEP headquarters, that we do other stuffs beyond just the conferences and so forth?
You know, these international conferences and other meetings are important because they bring people together and nations together. People share and especially interact with the new knowledge, new findings, new developments. They're really, really important, and some thorny issues are discussed and thrashed, and some way forward by way of policy and so on and so forth, and the protocols and so forth. So they're really important. But they cannot be the beginning and the end, which unfortunately seems to be the case with us.
All right.
We go to conferences and we don't go beyond those conferences. So we must go beyond those conferences. Right. And in any case, whether the conferences are very good ideas or not, it is the implementation that is important.
Yeah.
And to implement something, you domesticate it. You tailor it to meet your local situation.
All right.
So Kenya, as you put it, must try always to go beyond the talk.
All right.
And to implement some of these things.
Talking about tailoring institutions that will address such agenda, we have had NEM on board, National Environment Management Authority. However, if you look at the issue of waste and pollution going rounds, we still, the enforcement capability is still a bit shaky. How would you advise NEMA to go around that issue?
You know, the problem with this country is that the institutions we have are wonderful institutions.
Wonderful.
The mandate they have is wonderful. The men and the women are equally wonderful. If you go to any serious institution, you'll be impressed by the qualifications and the experience of the people running those institutions. But there's one elephant in the room, one animal that Kenyans, whenever they leave their homes to go to the office, they don't go to deliver. Kenyans go to find what to eat. Not by way of salary and allowances. No. What deals can they make?
At the expense of Mother Nature?
Just to make money. And I don't think NEMA is an exception.
I see.
Yeah, because if you move in Nairobi and follow the rivers, if you see the kind of mess, you will be forgiven for thinking we have never thought of an institution like NEMA. You see the level of factory pollution, the crude raw pollution going into the rivers that pass through Nairobi. You just sympathize. And why? The people charged with this responsibility are most likely compromised.
I see.
Yeah,
All right, let's talk about the issue that has made headlines year in, year out. We've seen our news headlines read the same every year, and that's with regards to drought cycles. Already, as we speak, people in Marsabit, in Moyale, and all those areas under the ASAL counties are facing the brunt of starvation and hunger. Would you say it's such a Herculean task for devolved governments to look beyond short-term intervention measures and now focus on the sustainable long-term issues that will address food security and other issues they are in?
This is a small matter. The issue of food security in this country is an issue you can take to a primary school debate and they'll give you the answers. You know, those primary school debates, they can give you all the answers. So this is rubbish. It's not anything. But back to where I started. People don't want to address issues and problems. They want to come up with schemes to eat. Do you know relief food supply is an industry with both international and local players, ranging all the way to the United Nations agencies? There was something laughable, but you couldn't laugh because hundreds of thousands of people are most likely dying, where the UN, I don't know, through some agents, I can't remember which, supplied very serious food relief food, I think to Somalia or something like that. Millions of dollars or many big monies. The people could not eat the food. It was strange to them. You know, you could be dying but something you can't eat. If you go deep into Masai land, just for example, and you say because you are dying here is fish, the people run away to go and die. Just looking at fish is itself repulsive. So they gave these people things they couldn't eat. You can imagine, for example, the things they will supply to people in Somalia. So what I'm saying is an industry. And we all know this. So at the local level, I do not believe this country has a problem feeding its population.
But Special Programs PS Nelson Marwa made a pronouncement that the government will now go on cash transfers other than relief food to those people in the area. Is this actually the thing that will be the silver bullet?
That will be a little better, and I've always said that is much better. That's why I kind of support the Raila 6,000 relief. I wish it was a little more because we can afford. But you see, even that, there are also problems with it. Problems of disbursement. Even this money for Wazee, the stipend, what is it called? It has a name, I'm forgetting. The money we give to elderly Kenyan senior citizens. That disbursement also has its own problems. Just disbursement. So even for this relief food in terms of monies, there's a problem and challenges with disbursement. Now, ukora mwingi ndani. There's also the challenge of identifying the proper recipients. You'll also, you might want to know that when you see many people crying and talking of hunger, and you want to listen to them in the rural parts of Turkana, and some others, Marsabit, were very rural.
Yeah.
Listen to the Kiswahili they speak. Very fluent Kiswahili. That should tell you something. Even within that context, kuna con men and con women. You know,
I see.
career sufferers. So while the real sufferers may not be as many, while the situation may not even be as bad, there are people who make it look so bad. Then they benefit.
All right.
And at the same time, they prevent government and other agencies from reaching the actual people. So all these things must be understood and dealt with for it to have some impact.
Okay, sir. Kenya's mitumba industry is valued at slightly over 12 billion Kenya shillings. However, if you look at the Gikomba case, we've had fire outbreaks year in, almost year out. And there is a narrative doing around that most of these fires have a correlation with the political orchestrations. And also there are those who blame Kenya Power and Lighting Company for illegal connections that have washed the market. Going ahead into the future, how do we combat such disasters, fire outbreaks, especially in Gikomba industry, where livelihoods are disrupted and also lives are lost?
When Uhuru spoke to us during some function last year or the other year, he introduced a new pillar, the pillar of human dignity. I appeal to Uhuru Kenyatta and whoever takes after him to spare this country the embarrassment of the mitumba industry. When you go to Gikomba and you see our women, our daughters buying used underwear, you cannot talk of dignity of a country, of a people. So that aside, there's also the question, before I answer your question, the question of talking about employment, yet allowing mitumba to contribute to the death of the textile industry. And then you say you want employment. Of course, there's livelihood from those who do that business, that we understand, but there's need to balance, okay? So in my view, mitumba should be banned completely from this country.
All right.
Then they take care of those. Now, to answer your question, the answer is all those things you have mentioned. First of all, if you go to Gikomba today or any other informal sector, you look at the wires hanging dangerously. You look at the structure supplied with electricity. You just sympathize with us. So Kenya Power must greatly be blamed for this. Number one. Number two, even from a point of view of human habitation, because those people are habitats there, they spend there more time than anywhere else. It's not a place where human beings should be.
Sanitation and all.
And everything, it's so bad. But finally, it is true, because it cannot be said all these years without carrying some element of truth. There is some politics. There is some business interests. There are people who gain, who stand to gain if these people are relocated, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So all those things are possible.
I see. All right. COVID-19 sent a wildcard to Kenya's economy and also the lives of many Kenyans. If you look at how Kenyan government responded towards combating COVID-19, there is less to write home about. If you're looking at issues such as COVID billionaires, and also on the health sector, we've seen shortages of essential drugs such as ARVs, treatment for cancer patients and so forth. Would you say Kenya positions its health sector in a way that it can combat other pandemics that might come in the near future?
First of all, I don't want to agree with you that there's nothing the government did in terms of COVID-19. If you go by the numbers alone, two things stand out. One, that the government had the capacity to do testing. You can't say that of many third world countries. Secondly, the numbers also tell you if government did nothing in the manner you are suggesting,
not really, no.
Then we would have been overwhelmed as a country, and I don't think we got to any point anywhere near being overwhelmed. So government did much. I would have wished it to do better. We feel bad about people stealing money meant for sick people, the so-called COVID and cancer billionaires. That is bad, but it's just what I've said earlier on. Kenyans see an opportunity to make money in anything.
But skeptics to your narrative will say that government's intervention came in way so late because they were largely depending on donor funding.
Let me tell you this. This thing hit everybody in the world. Nobody had answers. This is something that people were dealing with as time went on. If you look at the initial reaction, If you look at the initial strategies from across the world, everybody looking back saying, is it us who did this well? How stupid were we? Then that's how you must understand even the KEMSA scandal. In terms of, let me give you a very live example that concerns me. A few days after this corona thing was made public, I think in March of 2020, and when the panic set in, I got to a chemist, and I want you to listen carefully. I got to a chemist, and I bought a mask. I asked for a mask, and I was told it was 2,000 shillings. I paid for the mask. I paid 2,000 Kenya shillings. When I wanted to wear it, it was the type where this thing I think was going to behind the
around four
it
straps.
was like this. It's going round.
I get it.
It snapped. And I'd paid 2,000 the chemist. And I was there. They refunded my money. The following day, this thing, those things were going for 50 shillings, 30 shillings. So you must understand that, for example, that's how KEMSA happened. And in dealing with COVID, governments across the world, the most notable ones, the UK, they went through the same mess with PPEs. So when something is frightening and scaring, with little knowledge around, people go into panic moves, and a lot of ignorance can be allowed to pass.
All right.
So some of the things some of the problems you are alluding to that came in the initial stages were not uniquely Kenyan.
All right.
Were global in nature, and it's because this was a new thing that came with a lot of shock, with a lot of scare, and people are trying almost anything sometimes.
All right.
Yeah.
Talking about our somewhat unpreparedness in revamping our health sector and revitalizing it, would you say that its dependence on donor funding should alarm us now that there might be possible shift in donor priorities?
Depending on donor funding should not alarm us. We should not be alarmed. We should feel ashamed and stupid. Because you know what, Richard? When the United States, or I don't know which country, I think it's the US, withdrew, maybe to change its mind later, 2020, 2021, I think 2020, is funding to WHO. I was shocked. When I looked at the entire funding of WHO, it's something Kenya can do.
Self-reliance.
Kenya can fund WHO without feeling anything. When I calculated the cost of COVID vaccines, I got now the bigger shock. I got the bigger shock. Perhaps the money the office of the president and the DP uses over entertainment and travel is perhaps more than we need for COVID, for vaccines. It is so little. It is, you can't believe. Because when this one of Russian came, what was it called? Some vaccine, something, yeah? That's the time we got to know the price of vaccine. At a commercial level, it will be like 3,000 per job. At a commercial level. Which means if government is buying in bulk, perhaps it's just 1 shilling. Or I mean, some few coins. If you multiply by the number of vaccines you require, it's money Kenya can just do in a supplementary budget and give. And yet you want to beg. You want to compromise on health. You want to kneel going to look for donor funding over something like it's 20, 30 billion. My friend.
All right, sir. We've seen a collapse of critical infrastructure in the country that has not only disrupted the livelihoods we are talking about, but also lives. You've seen the 100 million Kajiado Dam that collapsed barely a week after it was launched, the Patel Solai Dam issue in there. And the question that that's spitting around many Kenyans' brains is that we have inspectorate divisions that are mandated with looking at safety standards of major infrastructures like those. However, matters of enforcement are still a challenge with regards to such. Going into the future, would you say that there's a possible collusion of the authorities that should enforce safety standards and the owners of such projects, or what's happening?
Richard, you know you are my student at the university and you are a bright student. I don't know what has happened to you, because now you don't seem to be as bright as you were when you were a student. I've already answered this question, and I've told you every single project you see, people want to eat from it.
At the expense
Those
of safety.
inspectors you are talking about, when you see these roads badly done, where are the engineers? The contractor cannot be paid without a certificate of completion and the signatures of several engineers on those documents. Where are they?
The governor was there to launch
You
the
see
bridge.
these engineers, they have not gone to school. They have gone to school. They know. People put dollars here and they close their eyes and they just sign, which is a tragedy, because this country will collapse because of its own children. The children like you, society has taken to school, trained to become senior economists like you. When you go to places, you forget that this country, you owe this country, and this country will not move forward unless you stand up for it. So they know. They know what's right.
Are you signaling a complete overhaul of safety enforcement government agencies?
I think there is unfortunately, unfortunately, this sort of things you will not overhaul, you will not legislate, and it's unfortunate, because salvation is to be found only in one thing,
Which is?
a one man at the top. I have said this repeatedly. One man in State House or one woman in State House is all you need to change all these things. Because you cannot, the whole system is rotten. However good you are, I tried to be a chairman of a school. I tried to help the school. Everybody was against me, even the community, and I want to help them. They have been poisoned by the people who want to eat little money. The education office, everybody hated me.
And that's how you're shown the door.
And then they could not even renew my term and they just laughed. And then you would try to understand, how come a school I taught in 40 years ago as a youth is still the same way I left it with the same infrastructure? Then you understand, because this society is rotten. We have elevated money to levels that are unimaginable. So money is everything to a Kenyan. So the only way, there are only two ways we can save ourselves. Number one, if the right man becomes president, most likely a madman without sympathy. The other thing is the way of resolution. How do things get resolved? When things are so bad, they reach a place where they burst. Kinapasuka pap. And that's why I always advise these rich people, the business class, the billionaires. I advise them, if you stay in Lavington and you would want your daughter to leave that class, you want your grandson to live in Lavington or Leshwa, check on how much you steal. Check on how destructive you are to the economy and to the country. Because it gets to a point where it cannot go on anymore, it just bursts. And that's what people call a revolution. In other words, things are so bad in this country. If we do not solve it through the first option of getting a good leader in State House, then we are courting a revolution. And it's sure enough it will come.
I see.
It will come. Even in my lifetime, things are so bad, I don't think they will continue like this beyond 10, 15 years. Look at the cost of living. Look at the cost of things in this country. Do you think the common man will accept to die?
Not at all.
Will he accept to die?
Never. All right. Money laundering has bolstered into a nightmare with regards to our economic setup. And money laundering is synonymous with the election year. This is 2022. How can we move our politics from being defined by the place of money and corruption and going into a political landscape largely influenced by ideology, so that we sort of get rid of adverse effects of money laundering?
Money laundering is a global problem. It's not a Kenyan problem. This kind of schemes to make money generally, whether money laundering was, but schemes to make money, hit the peak before an election for obvious reasons. People need money for an election. And I've argued that one way of making sure money is not very important in our election, one way is to move away from cash transaction, to move into a cashless economy. You cannot walk into a shop in America and buy furniture worth 50,000 shillings and you count notes. You won't even leave the place. Authorities will have been informed. You will answer questions immediately. We must move into a cashless economy to check the flow of money. Once we do that, then we can do small things like banning Harambe. So that the need for money is not as pronounced as it is. Now, when people are not going for Harambe, there will be another way of choosing leaders. And the leaders you have in mind will now be chosen, not on the basis of being development conscious. You get it? So we need to do those kind of things.
All right.
Yeah.
Our unpreparedness as a country to combat national disasters that have economic shocks in there, should it be largely and squarely placed at the doorstep of the government for it not having set up probably a disaster management cabinet position, rather ministry in the first place?
You can have all ministries you want, you can have all departments, but if the environment is useless, not even you, if you are given a job to do in this environment, I've given you my small micro example, you will not manage. PLO Lumumba went to anti-corruption, he told parliament, they sacked him, they chased him away. Even however well-meaning you are, so long as the environment is not conducive, there is an ecosystem that favors corruption. And in one institution, one agency, one individual will make no difference. The only individual who will make a difference is a man or a woman who lands at State House. One man.
The very last, sir. Terrorism has posed potential threat to Kenya's economic thriving, and it's happening all over the world. You've seen the case around Ethiopia with the Tigray War and all that place. However, there's a mismatch between the success level of Kenya Defence Forces and the police force. Kenya Defence Force on their side, with regards to external aggression, they have tried their best. However, what will explain the minimal performance of the Kenya Police Force with regards to now curbing internal attacks? You've seen the Kerio Valley thing, the taught in Elgeyo Marakwet. Livelihoods, lives are disrupted.
Governance within the police force or police service ought to be changed. The best example is, why do you think police officers are disillusioned? They arrest a man, you take him to the cell, somebody makes a phone call, the person is released. You get it?
I see.
Some you arrest, they go to court, tomorrow you meet them, they tell you they will deal with you. The police have been disillusioned because the governance structure is not good and conducive for good policing. So we need to check the governance or the police service governance.
All right.
Something else, we need to change the training. The training is largely colonial, of marching, of yes sir, blah, blah, done, blah, blah. That is rubbish. Afande, nini, nini.
Yeah.
But also pre-entry is important. In this day and age, when this country releases hundreds of thousands of graduates every year into the market, why would the police officers still be people who are not well educated? Entry to the police force in terms of training must be a university degree and no less. Because nobody can complain. We have enough. Of course, there will be affirmative action, quota system to cater for areas that may be greatly disadvantaged. But by and large, I would expect over 80% of police recruits to be university graduates.
All right.
That will go a long way in absorption in terms of the training. Even if you come up with a wonderful training, modern training, and the entry level is weak, that absorption of what you are giving is very low.
All right. How about the local economies that are bearing the brunt of insecurity? Talk of Elgeyo Marakwet. You've seen banditry attacks in Tot and Kerio Valley, the larger Kerio Valley.
Sometimes people say this is more than meets the eye. One day somebody asked me, Manyora, do you believe cattle rustling that goes on in those areas, Suguta Valley and the rest, do you believe is carried out by cattle rustlers? I say, of course. I said, but Manyora, I thought you went to school. I said, of course I went to school, Kidogo. Means just Sana, but Kidogo. He told me, no, you look like a primary school dropout. I said, maybe I am. Why? He said, can you imagine carrying with you on foot 10,000 herds of cattle, 2,000, and a helicopter up there cannot see you? The dust it raises, 3,000 herds of cattle. I said, oh, I hadn't seen it. He told me, now you know you are stupid. I said, I am stupid because this is more than cattle rustling. It's organized. Now, if you look at it that way, you may therefore agree, and even government self has been warning some political leaders. Some people do these things to incite violence to win political office. I saw it in my place between the Luya and the Kalenjin, the Nandi and the Maragoli and the Tiriki, where I come from. They have always, it was always done by politicians. So they may appear to be macho, elect the leaders, and therefore they are elected, which is stupid. And finally, you know, you must deal with the cultural problems. This is beyond just policing, and it is culture. And therefore, the government must have a multidisciplinary approach to these problems by bringing in experts and professionals, anthropologists, sociologists, communication experts, and all other people, so that geographers, they understand the terrain. Sometimes you are defeated as the Kenya police because you are going about against people who understand the terrain, like the Suguta Valley and the oxygen levels as you go down the valley. So you need to have that kind of approach.
Okay.
Very, very finally, we need to employ seriousness in matters of security in this country, which I always believe we fall short of.
Not just Natembe and Matiang'i. We go
beyond that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that point by Herman Manyora takes us to the wrap of our conversation today here on Business Glide, touching on matters national disasters management and economic shocks therein that we should address in the near future as a country, and how we can go about that very same agenda. Our fan of the week is none other than Jambi Maguta in Seattle, America.
Jambi Maguta from Seattle, America. How is American soil and the people of the American soil? We appreciate you so much, Jambi.
All right.
And tell other Kenyans in Seattle to join us so that we are a bigger family. Thank you very much.
All right, we always appreciate your company on Business Glide. Make sure you get posted on our proverb of the day that's coming up next on your screen. Until next time, God bless.